about our first time. It was in Melbourne, Australia, and we went to it was a pig vigil. And we had seen a lot of these videos on YouTube and Facebook, and we knew what to expect because we'd seen other people do it. But when you're there for the first time, it's like nothing prepares you. And my heart was beating so fast. I mean, we were filming that day to make a video for YouTube, and my hands were shaking. And my hands continued to shake for probably the first, I'd say 3-4 vigils, until I got used to it, and then I could keep the camera straight. But the rush of adrenaline and my heart beating, and it was just like nothing prepares you for that moment. And I will say that I used to work as a journalist many, many years ago. And one of the stories that I did was about Holocaust survivors. This was back in Australia. And I remember going to visit a few Holocaust survivors. And I was interviewing one lady in particular. She was very old, and she was such a character, really eccentric, just a huge character, larger than life. And I remember we were sitting there, and I was kind of looking at her arm, and she caught me looking, and she said, "You want to see the tattoo, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of do." And she rolled up her sleeve and she showed me. And to me, it was a piece of history right there in front of me. And I was shocked by that tattoo more than anything else that she had said. It was like, I was bearing witness right there. And the very first vigil we went to, I was taken straight back to that experience of meeting that woman, that Jewish woman, and hearing her story and seeing her tattoo. I felt like seeing the pigs on the truck. I was witnessing a piece of history yet again. I was witnessing a survivor who, well, they're not a survivor because they were murdered, but they had survived up until that point. They were a piece of history. They were a product of factory farming. They were right there in front of me. And it was exactly the same feeling that I had 10 plus years ago interviewing that Holocaust survivor. It was the same. And yeah, it was almost something that I couldn't even describe properly to our audience. It was just something that I felt.
Yeah, I think that's why, like, I believe in the imperative bearing witness, because it's life-changing. I mean, I was already a vegan, I was already an activist, but once I bore witness, animal rights became the #1 priority in my life. I left everything aside. I was living on my savings, and I spent time just like organizing this group, and I believed in it. You know, I just believed that we were doing the right thing, and that it would grow, and that the whole world needs to see this. And so I was trying to figure out, like, how do we do this so that we can get there? And, you know, we started slowly, and then now it's growing quickly for various reasons, like the pig trial. But in terms of that experience, I think that, you know, there's a difference between watching a video, which can make you go vegan and become an activist, and witnessing firsthand. And we know that in all social movements. If you've experienced something firsthand, your commitment to the cause will be so much greater. I mean, when Gandhi, you know, progressive individual, went to South Africa and he personally experienced racism, he got drawn into the cause, devoted his life to the cause. And, you know, if you're African American and you're suffering segregation and all that, you know, then, and you know what racism is, then you'll devote your life to the civil rights movement. And I think why bearing witness is so important, because people always say, well, animal rights is really hard because it's not about us. It's not identity politics. Like, you know, if you're gay, or if you're a woman, or if you're, you know, a person of color, you know, why, you know, people have or a worker or a poor person, like, you're organizing for your rights and your interests. But I believe bearing witness is a way for us to get there, because we empathize so strongly. That feeling that you had is so incredible, so extreme, like in terms of your identifying with this animal or the victim of the Holocaust, that that's how we get there. So, so that's why I believe in the power of bearing witness.
This is very powerful, what you've just said, Anita, because we've often spoken amongst ourselves about the various forms of discrimination throughout history. And we've always said, yes, we may have been able to overcome human rights, civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, and what have you, but they've always been within the same species. But speciesism is, of course, a form of discrimination where we discriminate against other species.